In the deep emptiness beyond the last marked stars of the Council's maps, life was calm. The great powers of the galaxy had not fought a war for more than 1,000 years. Merchants traveled between systems without fear. The Council of Nine. Races made sure that every dispute was solved with words, not weapons. Most young citizens had never even seen a real warship. The Council's peacekeepers were light and fast, built for escort and patrol. They carried small weapons, enough to scare away thieves, but never enough to destroy. The galaxy had grown comfortable. Danger was a story told to children. The scout ship Virel Dawn belonged to the Verlin, one of the Council's oldest members. Its crew was small, only 12 beings, and its job was simple. It traveled along the border of known space, mapping asteroids and marking safe routes for traders. Captain Relva had done this work for more than 20 years. She had seen strange stars, bright nebula clouds, and even the ruins of lost stations from before the Council's time. But she had never seen what her sensors found on that day. It began as a faint signal, barely more than background noise. The ship's sensor officer, Terran, was the first to notice. He sat in front of a glowing control panel, adjusting the filters. "Captain, I have something," he said. Relva turned from her seat and walked over. On the screen was a thin line of energy readings. It was not like any standard beacon. It was steady, but its pattern was odd. Too regular to be natural, too strange to be Council-made. "Distance?" she asked. 7.4 million. "Units," Terran replied. "Stationary. No broadcasts except this signal." Relva thought for a moment. "Set course. We will take a closer look." The Virile Dawn slid through the darkness, its engines humming softly. The stars outside were cold and distant, the only movement coming from the soft glow of nearby asteroids. Hours passed. The signal grew stronger. When they reached the source, every crew member gathered at the forward viewport. Floating in the shadow of a small moon was a massive ship. It was dark, almost black, and its shape was sharp and angular, built like a blade meant to cut through the void. No one spoke for several moments. "Size estimate?" Relva said quietly. The navigator checked his console. "Length, 2,600 meters. Width, 700. Hull density, far above Council military standard." The numbers made no sense. Council peacekeeping ships rarely reached half that size. Even the old war cruisers from before the peace were smaller. And this one looked different. There were no curved lines, no bright colors, no friendly markings. Its hull seemed to absorb the starlight, giving it a shadowy presence. Terran ran another scan. "Strange. My instruments cannot see through its outer layer. I cannot read its power core or weapons. It is as if the ship is hiding from us." Relva frowned. A warship? The idea felt strange in her mind. No one built ships for war anymore. But the way this vessel was shaped, the heavy armor plates, the wide weapon mounts, if it was not a warship, then it was something very close. Still, it was silent. No lights on the hull, no movement, no signs of life. It drifted slowly, as if abandoned. The crew began to whisper among themselves. "It could be a relic from the War Age," one said. "Or maybe a machine with no crew," another added. Relva raised a hand for silence. "We will approach with caution. Keep scanners active. No direct contact until we understand more." The Virile Dawn moved forward, keeping a respectful distance. Its small engines made almost no sound in the vacuum, but to the crew it felt as if the black giant could hear their every move. Then something changed. A single light blinked on the warship's side. It was small at first, then bright enough to cast a pale glow across the hull. The crew froze. "It's a signal," Terran said. His voice was tight. "Not Council standard. Unknown pattern." Relva watched as the light flashed in long and short bursts. It was rhythmic, almost like a code. None of the crew could read it, but the feeling it gave was clear. It feels like, Terran began, then stopped. A warning, Relva finished for him. The ship remained still, its message repeating again and again. Behind it, the cold moon drifted silently. In all her years, Relva had never felt such a heavy quiet. This was no trade vessel, no drifting wreck. Whoever had built this had done so for strength, for battle, for something far beyond the Council's soft peace. And though they did not yet know its name or its makers, the Virile Dawn crew understood one thing. With absolute certainty, this was the kind of ship that changed the course of history. The strange vessel hung in space like a sleeping beast. The light from the nearby star barely touched its black armor. The Virile Dawn kept its distance, circling slowly, every sensor focused on the giant. Captain Relva studied the display screens, searching for any clue about its origin. From a distance, it almost looked lifeless, but the longer they observed, the more it felt alive. The patterns on its hull seemed too deliberate, the weapon mounts too carefully placed. This was no abandoned craft. Terran, the sensor officer, kept shaking his head as numbers scrolled past. Captain, I cannot match this material to anything in the Council database. Its density is extreme. If this is armor, nothing we have could pierce it. Relva's jaw tightened. The Council prided itself on peace, but even peacekeepers had limits. If this vessel's armor was beyond their weapons, it meant someone had built it for threats far greater than pirates. Are we receiving any communication? She asked. Only the light signal, Terran said, repeating in the same sequence. No audio, no image. Relva leaned closer to the viewport. The light blinked again and again, slow and deliberate. She could almost imagine a voice behind it, deep and calm, telling them to keep their distance. The crew worked in silence, each one aware of the tension in the air. The youngest, a navigation cadet named Elra, whispered, "It feels like it is watching us." Relva glanced at her. Ships do not watch, crews do. But even she felt the same chill. An idea formed in her mind. Send a standard first contact message. Use Council format. Within moments, a small signal burst left the Virile Dawn, carrying greetings, identity, and peaceful intent. It was the same message used for hundreds of years when meeting new worlds. The warship gave no answer. Try again. With wider language coverage, Relva ordered. Terran adjusted the transmission, including over 1,000 known dialects. The message went out again. This time, the warship reacted. A ripple of light ran along its side, like a wave passing over metal. Then, a narrow beam of blue light projected from its hull. It formed a three-dimensional pattern in space. Strange. Shapes, curved lines, and sharp angles. It rotated slowly before fading away. Unknown symbols, Terran said quickly. They do not match any Council script. Before anyone could analyze the pattern, another image formed. This one was clear. A figure standing tall, wearing a dark uniform. The figure's skin was light, the hair short and dark. Its eyes were sharp, fixed on the Virile Dawn as if measuring its worth. The figure spoke. The voice was deep, steady, but the language was not in their translation systems. The crew listened in silence, unable to understand, yet feeling the weight in every word. When the message ended, the image dissolved into the darkness. "What was that?" Elra whispered. "A crew member," Relva said slowly. "No, a commander. Whoever built this ship is advanced enough to project images directly into space." The crew began running translations, but the process would take time. Meanwhile, Relva kept her gaze fixed on the warship. It still made no move to approach or attack, yet its presence felt heavier with every passing moment. Minutes stretched into hours. The Council vessel kept sending peaceful signals. The warship replied only with the same sequence of light and the occasional projection of the uniformed figure. Finally, Terran reported, I believe the light pattern is a kind of code. It may not be language. It could be a warning sequence or a claim of territory. Relva considered this. If it was a warning, it was meant to be clear even without words. The vessel was telling them they were close enough. Back on the Council's communication network, reports from the Viral Dawn began to spread. Relva's transmissions were short and careful. She knew other ships would soon come. The Council did not ignore strange finds, especially ones that looked like war relics. One by one, other ships began to change course toward the system. But Relva felt an unease about that. If this vessel was from an unknown race, its reaction to multiple ships might not be peaceful. She ordered her crew to hold position and keep all weapons offline. The Viral Dawn might be small, but any hint of aggression could be seen as a threat. The youngest crew members could not take their eyes off the black giant. Elra asked, "Do you think they are dangerous?" Relva did not answer at once. She remembered old academy lectures about the War Age, a time before the Council united the stars. Back then, ships had been built to destroy, not to protect. Their captains had ruled space with fire and metal. "I think," Relva said finally, "they are, prepared to be dangerous if they must." And though her words were calm, she knew deep inside that they had found something the galaxy had not seen for centuries, a vessel born for war. The stars around them seemed quieter than before, as if space itself was waiting for the next move. The warship remained still, but the silence around it began to change. Subtle movements appeared along its massive hull, almost like shadows sliding under the surface. The Viral Dawn crew watched in quiet tension. Terran's console lit up with alerts. "Captain, I am reading a sudden increase in energy output. Power levels are rising across all sections of the vessel." Relva's eyes narrowed. "From standby to active?" "Yes," Terran confirmed. "They are waking the ship." Relva's hands rested on the armrests of her chair. She did not issue a retreat order. She wanted to see what this vessel truly was. If they fled now, they might lose their only chance to learn. Panels along the warship's spine shifted slightly, revealing rows of large structures that could only be weapon mounts or defense arrays. They did not glow or fire, but their presence alone was enough to make the crew feel the weight of their power. Without warning, a massive symbol lit up on the warship's side. It was made of clean, sharp lines, an image of a great bird, wings, spread wide, talons gripping a sphere. The design burned white against the black armor. "What does it mean?" Elra asked, her voice quiet. "A crest," Relva said softly. "An emblem of the builders. Whoever they are, they want us to see it." The ship's sensors recorded every detail. The emblem was unlike anything in the Council's archives. It carried no signs of trade alliances or peacekeeping duty. It was bold, almost aggressive, the mark of a people who were not afraid to show strength. Then the image of the figure returned, projected in perfect clarity. The uniformed human stood with arms folded behind his back. His gaze was steady, and his voice, though still untranslated, carried an unmistakable tone, firm, confident, unshaken. This time, the projection changed. The background behind the figure shifted, revealing a scene that drew sharp breaths from the Viral Dawn crew. Stars burned red in the distance, and in the foreground, ships of the same design as the warship were in motion. Some were firing great beams of light at unseen targets, while others moved in tight formations, escorting enormous carriers. "They are showing us their fleet," Terran said, "or what their fleet once looked like." Relva leaned forward. "This is no simple introduction. They are showing us what they can do." The projection shifted again, showing flashes of planets, some vibrant with life, others scarred with massive impact craters. The meaning was clear even without translation. This was a people who had fought, who had defended, who had conquered. The image faded, leaving only the warship's dark form. They are telling us they are not to be challenged, Terran murmured. The crew fell silent. No one wanted to speak against the unspoken truth they all felt. This was not just a ship drifting on the edge of space. This was a messenger of a species whose history was written in both survival and power. Suddenly, the warship transmitted a sound. At first, it was deep and slow, almost like a heartbeat. Then it grew into a series of tones that formed a pattern. The tones were steady, unhurried, as if the sender had no reason to rush. It could be a code, Terran said, or it could be a form of greeting. Relva studied the sound, letting it play through the cabin. It was not like the bright and quick tones of council messages. This was older, heavier, a sound that carried weight. The Virel Dawn crew worked, quickly, feeding the audio through their translation systems. No clear words appeared, but they began to map certain repeated sequences. The ship was speaking, but in a language no one in the council had ever heard. Then, without warning, the warship's engines came to life. They were not loud, but the energy readings were staggering. The massive vessel turned slowly, bringing its forward section to face the Virel Dawn. Elra's hands gripped the arm of her chair. "Are they going to fire?" Relva stayed calm. "No. If they meant to destroy us, they would have done so before we even saw them." The warship held position, facing them. Another beam of light projected into space, forming a single line of symbols. This time, the translation system caught part of it. One word, barely understood. "Earth," Terran read aloud. The crew looked at one another. The word meant nothing to them, but it was clearly important to the warship's builders. Relva repeated it softly. "Earth, that is where they come from." The warship's light signal began again, slower this time, almost like an invitation. The meaning was uncertain, but Relva felt they were being given a choice: follow and learn, or leave and never return. Her mind raced. This was no ordinary contact. If the Council learned that a war-capable race had reached their borders, there would be fear. But there would also be opportunity. "Hold position," she ordered. "Record everything. This moment will be remembered for generations." And as the black giant floated before them, alive now with light and power, the crew understood that they were witnessing the awakening of something far greater than themselves. The image of the black warship did not remain a secret for long. The Virel Dawn's transmissions reached the central relay stations, and from there, the data spread across the Council's communication web. Within a single rotation, every major world had seen the silent giant with its sharp lines and shadowed hull. In the Grand Hall of the Council, the representatives of 9 great species gathered. The chamber was vast, filled with tiered seats that curved around a central floor. At the center stood the speaker, an elderly Varn whose silver crest marked decades of service. One by one, the Virel Dawn's recordings were played. First came the wide shot of the vessel drifting near the small moon. Then the light sequence blinked in the darkness, slow and deliberate. Finally, the human commander's projection appeared, standing tall with that unshaken gaze. The scenes of fleets and battlefields followed. When the last image faded, the hall was silent. Even the most talkative of delegates seemed unable to find words. A low voice broke the stillness. It belonged to Chancellor Rill of the Cordis Union. "This is not a council ship. This is not a design we know, and yet it is armed beyond any vessel we have seen in 1,000 years. Another delegate spoke, their tone edged with unease. "If they have fleets like this, they could challenge our peace." The speaker raised a hand. "Let us not leap to fear. The Virel Dawn reports no hostile act, only communication attempts and displays. We must understand before we judge." But the unease in the room did not fade. The council had been built on the promise of peace, and peace had made them forget what it was like to meet a people who carried weapons without shame. Far from the Council's core worlds, in outpost stations and border colonies, the story took a different shape. Traders spoke in hushed voices about a shadow ship that could not be scanned. Miners told each other that the emblem on its hull was the mark of a war clan. In some places, fear grew. In others, excitement. A few even hoped that such a race might one day join the Council as protectors. Meanwhile, in the system where the Virel Dawn still watched the warship, Captain Relva received her new orders. The Council was sending a diplomatic fleet. Their mission was to attempt direct contact and to learn everything possible about this new species. Relva read the orders twice before setting the pad down. She knew the Council's diplomats well. They were skilled in negotiation, but none had faced a power like this. Within days, the diplomatic fleet arrived. There were 6 ships in total, all marked with the bright banners of the Council. Their hulls gleamed in the star's light, their designs smooth and welcoming. None carried heavy weapons. The lead diplomat was Arian, a tall and calm figure from the Lurian Commonwealth. He greeted Relva aboard the Virel Dawn, listening carefully as she explained everything they had seen. "They have shown strength, but not hostility," she told him. "If they wanted to destroy us, they could have done so at any time." Arion nodded. "That makes them either cautious or confident. We must find which it is." The fleet approached the warship in a slow, careful formation. At first, the black vessel made no move. Then, as before, the lights along its hull came alive. The emblem of the eagle and sphere burned bright. The projection of the human commander appeared again, his voice echoing through space, still in that unknown language. This time, the Council ships answered together, sending a message in every known dialect of the 9 races. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the warship replied with a single new word in its own tongue, repeating it twice before falling. "Silent." "It is the same sound the Virel Dawn recorded before," Terran said over the comm. "The one we translated partly as Earth." Arian looked thoughtful. "Then we know at least this. They wish us to remember their home. The Council fleet stayed for several hours, exchanging signals, but no new translation progress was made. The warship seemed content to watch and respond in its own way. When the fleet withdrew to a safe distance, discussions began among the diplomats. Some believed the warship was testing them, measuring their patience. Others thought it was a guardian, sent ahead of its people to explore. Back in the Grand Hall, reports from the fleet caused a stir. The Council could not ignore the possibility that more ships like this existed. Military planners began running quiet simulations of what would happen if such a vessel turned hostile. The results were not comforting, yet the Speaker of the Council remained steady. "We have no proof of aggression. Until we do, we must approach with respect. But be certain of this. The galaxy has changed. We are no longer alone in the way we once believed." Across the stars, that truth settled into every mind. Whether in fear or in hope, all now shared one thought: the builders of the Black. Warship were out there, and they would not remain a mystery forever. The Council fleet kept a respectful distance from the Black warship, still uncertain of its purpose. Days passed without change. The warship's lights pulsed at intervals, its engines idled, and the image of the human commander appeared from time to time, repeating his unreadable words. It was during one of these quiet cycles that the system's peace was broken. From the far side of the small moon, 3 pirate ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Their hulls were scarred and uneven, their shapes crude compared to the smooth Council vessels. These pirates were not from any major race. They were outcasts, living on stolen goods and quick raids. They had heard rumors of a strange black ship in the sector and thought it would be an easy prize. The Virel Dawn picked up their arrival first. 3 ships inbound, Terran reported sharply. Their course leads straight to the warship. Captain Relva's eyes hardened. Signal the Council fleet. But before the diplomats could act, the pirates sent a message on an open channel. It was not a greeting. It was a demand for surrender, backed by the threat of weapons fire. The black warship did not answer. The pirates closed in, their engines burning bright. They opened fire with bursts of plasma meant to disable engines. The Council fleet held position, unwilling to risk being drawn into a fight. Then, the warship moved. Its engines came alive, with a deep, steady glow. In a single smooth turn, it faced the pirates head-on. The light from its crest, the eagle clutching the sphere, flared bright, as if to declare its identity before striking. From the Virile Dawn's deck, the crew watched in silent awe as the warship's forward batteries lit up. Beams of light, pure and precise, shot across the darkness. Each beam hit its target exactly, cutting through pirate shields as if they were thin paper. One pirate ship broke apart instantly, its hull splitting into two burning halves. The second tried to roll away, but another beam sliced through its engine block, sending it spinning into the void. The third turned to flee, but the warship released a single missile, small in size but impossibly fast. It caught the fleeing vessel within seconds, ending the chase. The entire battle lasted less than a minute. No wild shots, no wasted fire. Every attack was measured, clean, and final. Silence followed. The drifting wreckage of the pirate ships glowed faintly as emergency power flickered and died. The warship returned to its original position near the moon as if nothing had happened. On the council channels, voices spoke over each other in shock. "You saw that targeting," one diplomat whispered. "They destroyed 3 armed ships in seconds," another said. "No hesitation." Relva did not speak right away. Her gaze stayed on the warship. This had not been a random act of violence. It had been a demonstration, a message to everyone watching. The pirates had attacked first, and the warship had ended the fight with ruthless efficiency. In council law, it was a legitimate act of defense, but the scale of power on display was something the council had not seen in living memory. Arian, the lead diplomat, opened a channel to the warship. His voice was calm but respectful. "This is the council diplomatic fleet. Your actions have been witnessed. The threat has been removed. We wish to understand your intent." The warship replied not with words, but with another projection of the human commander. This time, the background was different. Instead of battle scenes, it showed a vast blue and green planet covered with oceans and land masses. The word they had partially translated earlier, Earth, appeared in Nabas, glowing letters beside it. Then another image appeared. It was a ring of ships, forming a protective wall around the planet. The meaning was simple. This was their home, and they defended it with everything they had. When the image faded, the warship powered down its weapons and resumed its quiet watch over the system. The council fleet remained in orbit, still processing what they had seen. Messages poured back to the Grand Hall, where leaders debated what this meant. Some saw hope in the precision of the strike. "They do not kill without reason," argued one voice. "They respond only when attacked." Others saw a warning. "If one ship can do this, imagine what their fleets can achieve. We must be ready." Out in the field, Relva had her own thoughts. She knew now that the warship's silence was not weakness. It was the patience of someone who did not need to prove their strength until someone else forced their hand. And when that happened, the result was swift, unstoppable, and absolute. After the demonstration against the pirates, the council realized that careful communication was more important than ever. Captain Relva and the council diplomats worked to establish a clearer connection with the black warship. Weeks of scanning, signaling, and translation attempts had built a fragile understanding, and the human commander finally agreed to a direct projection to speak with the council. The bridge of the Virile Dawn was tense as the image appeared. The human captain was tall and composed, his dark uniform sharply pressed. His expression was calm, yet it carried authority that seemed to reach through the projection into the hearts of those watching. The council delegates listened carefully as the humans spoke. The words had been translated into multiple languages, yet the tone carried weight beyond translation. "I am Marcus Hale," he said. "I command this vessel on behalf of Earth. We are explorers, not conquerors. But we have learned that peace is fragile. History has shown us that those who are unprepared are often destroyed by those who are not." A murmur ran through the council representatives. They had never heard such direct speech. The honesty in his voice was undeniable, and it left no room for doubt about the power behind it. Arian stepped forward. "Captain Hale, your presence here, your actions against the pirates, and the display of your vessel's power, it is unlike anything the Council has encountered. Why is such a strong weapon needed for exploration?" Hale's gaze did not falter. "Our journeys take us to unknown regions. We cannot assume that all who dwell there are friendly. We carry weapons not to attack, but to protect our people and the worlds we discover. Peace survives only when someone is ready to defend it." Relva watched as the other council members absorbed his words. Some were relieved. Others still felt unease, but the clarity of his explanation left no room for misunderstanding. A Cordon delegate raised a question. "Captain Hale, have your people ever used these weapons against other civilizations without provocation?" Hale's reply was firm. "We act only in defense. Every ship in our fleet is built to prevent unnecessary destruction. If attacked, we respond. If not, we observe, learn, and leave. That is the law of our people." The council representatives shared glances. They had faced threats before, but the honesty and discipline of this species were unlike any they had known. The human warship had destroyed 3 pirate vessels with precision, yet the captain had not sought revenge or aggression. It had been a display of responsibility. Another diplomat asked about the term they had seen repeatedly. "Earth." "Captain, this Earth you speak of, is it your home world?" "Yes," Hale said. "It is our origin, and it is worth defending. Our ships, our fleets, and our explorers are tied to that world. Every journey we take carries the memory of home and the duty to protect it." Relva felt a quiet admiration for the captain. There was courage in this statement, but also restraint. The human people had learned to balance power with conscience, to wield strength without arrogance. The conversation continued, moving to technical topics. Hale shared general principles of human technology, navigation, and defense without revealing secrets. The council listened with fascination. Their scientists recorded every detail, knowing that the methods behind the warship's efficiency could take centuries to understand fully. Hours passed, yet the tension on the Viral Dawn Bridge did not ease. Every council member present understood that they were witnessing the philosophy of a species built for survival, yet guided by wisdom. The human warship represented more than technology. It represented discipline, strategy, and respect for life. Relva finally spoke. "Captain Hale, your people are unique. You do not seek conquest, but your presence changes the balance in these regions. How do you view other civilizations in the galaxy?" Hale's expression softened slightly. "We respect life and learning. Every world has its own story. We do not interfere unless it is necessary to prevent harm. Our strength is not meant to dominate, but to ensure that no one is destroyed without cause. We hope that other species will meet us with the same respect. We offer." The council delegates nodded slowly. Some were impressed by the discipline, others by the clarity of thought. None doubted the power behind the calm words. After a long pause, the human captain concluded, "We will continue our exploration, and we will communicate whenever possible. But know this, we do not travel lightly. Every journey carries responsibility. Peace is our goal, but we are ready to defend it with everything we have." When the projection ended, The delegates remained silent for a moment. The weight of what they had learned sank in. This was not a species to be underestimated. Their ships were instruments of war, yes, but controlled by discipline, conscience, and a philosophy that balanced strength with peace. Arian looked to Relva. They are more than a threat or a curiosity. They are a lesson. We must learn from this meeting as much as we can. Relva nodded. We have seen what restraint looks like in power. We have seen a species that survives because it respects life and understands strength. That is rare in this galaxy. Outside, the black warship floated silently near the small moon, its lights pulsing slowly. For the first time in centuries, the Council and all who watched understood that humans were different. They were not merely explorers or warriors. They were a species capable of great responsibility, and their presence promised a future where power could coexist with peace. And in that quiet, across the stars, the Council realized that humans would not be forgotten. The black human warship lingered in the system for several rotations, giving the Council and their diplomats time to study, communicate, and understand. Each day, the ship projected calm confidence, never threatening, never leaving, yet never, fully revealing the depth of its power. Its presence was a constant reminder that the galaxy had changed. Captain Marcus Hale addressed the Council one final time before the ship would depart. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of experience and restraint. "We have completed our survey here," he said. "Our mission continues into uncharted space. We leave only with knowledge gained and with respect for all civilizations encountered. Remember, peace is strongest when those who protect it are ready to act." The Council delegates listened intently. The message was not just about the ship or its weapons. It was about philosophy. It was about a species that understood both the value of life and the need to defend it. Captain Relva watched Hale's projection dissolve into the quiet of space. She had spent weeks observing, analyzing, and learning. Her own crew felt the same mixture of awe and humility. They had seen a species that could command absolute power, yet choose restraint. That lesson would resonate across the Council for generations. The Council fleet formed a respectful escort as the warship powered its engines. Blue and white glows appeared along its hull, illuminating the darkness like a beacon. The engines flared, and the massive vessel slid through space with smooth, controlled strength. As it moved, Council ships maintained distance, careful not to provoke but eager to witness the vessel's capabilities. It passed through asteroid fields with perfect navigation, turning and adjusting with a precision that seemed almost unnatural. Every movement was deliberate, efficient, and confident. In its wake, the black warship left no destruction, no claim, only the quiet impression of a species that could dominate if it chose, yet would not do so without cause. The Council and their fleet realized that humans carried power unlike anything seen before, yet they carried it responsibly. As the warship reached the edge of the system, Hale's projection appeared one last time. He looked at each Council delegate and each crew member aboard the Virel Dawn. "Do not fear us," he said. "We are explorers first. We are warriors only when necessary. Our home teaches us that strength must be guided by wisdom. Carry this thought with you as you continue your work in the stars." Then the projection faded. The warship glowed for a final moment before engaging its faster-than-light engines. In a flash, it vanished into the darkness beyond known space. The Council fleet remained in orbit, silent. No one spoke at first. The weight of what had occurred was too great. Across the galaxy, reports spread from system to system. Every trader, diplomat, and traveler shared the story of the black warship, the precision of its weapons, the calm authority of its captain, and the philosophy behind its actions. In the grand hall of the Council, delegates debated what this encounter meant. Some spoke of opportunity, of learning from a species that balanced strength with conscience. Others spoke of caution, of preparing for the unknown capabilities of humans in future encounters. Yet all agreed on one truth. The galaxy had changed forever. Captain Relva and her crew returned to their routine patrols. Yet they did so with a new perspective. They had witnessed a species that represented the height of discipline, strategy, and moral responsibility. The lesson was clear. Power without restraint was dangerous, but power with wisdom could protect worlds and preserve peace. On distant planets, scholars began to write about humans. Children learned stories of their courage, discipline, and restraint. Poets and historians marveled at the balance between technology and conscience. Across the galaxy, whispers grew into conversations, and conversations became caution, respect, and curiosity. In the silence of space where the black warship had once drifted, the stars seemed to hold their breath. Even the distant moons and planets felt the presence that had passed through. Humans had left no weapons, no colonies, no sign of aggression. Only the memory of their discipline, the awareness of their capability, and the weight of their philosophy. Captain Hale and his crew continued their journey into uncharted space. Each system they passed would remember them, even if only in stories and transmissions. They traveled alone but left an enduring mark on every civilization that saw them. And so the galaxy learned a simple truth. Humans were not merely another species. They were survivors, explorers, warriors, and philosophers. They carried the knowledge of home, the lessons of history, and the discipline to act when needed. Their warships could destroy entire fleets, yet their greatest power was the choice to wield that strength wisely. Silence fell across the stars after the human vessel vanished. It was not a silence of fear. It was a silence of awe, respect, and the understanding that the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. Humans had arrived, and they had changed everything. In that quiet across systems, civilizations, and councils, a single thought spread. Wherever humans went, the balance of power would shift, not because they sought conquest, but because they were ready, disciplined, and responsible. The stars would remember the day they first saw a human warship. The galaxy would never forget.